Let's do a little mic unmute first. Hey, good morning. Joel here with Be Growth Driven. We have a special episode we're going to do these next few weeks touching on GrowthCon. Last week we did a nice little recap with a few of our friends right there on site at the JW Turnberry in Miami. And so over the next couple of weeks, what we're going to do is we're going to bring in some different friends, and we're going to talk about basically some of the highlights, some of the high points, and also some of the journeys that some individuals made to make it to GrowthCon and why it was important to them. So we're very excited about today's episode, and we're actually going to bring in Zaria as well as lovely Audrey. And let's see here. Oh, okay. I see that note. Thank you very much, Audrey. I appreciate it. So, Zaria, welcome to Be Growth Driven. We're excited to have you on here today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Joel?
Wonderful. Doing wonderful. So why don't we start real quick? We're going to get into talking about GrowthCon day one and like what are some of our key takeaways, because obviously we went there to get some key takeaways. But let's first of all tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about who you are, what you do, where you came from, those types of things.
Awesome. Well, first off, Joel, I just want to thank you sincerely for bringing me on your podcast. I'm super excited to be here, and I can't wait to go over day one of GrowthCon. But my name is Zaria. I'm from Canada. I'm currently in Alberta right now. And I actually came to Miami all the way from Canada. So I've got my red on today to represent Canada. And I work with Primerica, so I change lives financially in the short sentence there. And I absolutely love what I do, and I'm just so grateful to, go to GrowthCon and meet people like you and Audrey, and just surround yourself with all these great-minded people.
Love it. Love it. So tell us a little bit about the journey, because it wasn't an easy one. I mean, Canada is kind of like shut down as far as most travel goes.
Yeah, so, leaving Canada was actually pretty easy. I just had to get a COVID test, test negative, and then leaving Miami, I had to get the same thing, 72 hours, you have to get a COVID test. But when I entered Canada, I knew that there's some, I guess, like restrictions going on where in Canada now, when you cross the border from the States, you have to go in a 3-day mandatory government-approved hotel, quarantine for 3 days. So as soon as I hit the airport, they grill you with questions. I had a letter from my lawyer said, do up a letter saying that you came there for business purposes. It's your livelihood. It's your only sole income. And they should be able to deem you as essential travel. Well, it didn't go that way. I ended up fighting with border security for at least 10 minutes, maybe 15, maybe 20. I'm not sure. But they weren't having any of it, no matter what I told them. They're like, I don't understand why you had to go. You could have done this from home. And I was like, well, I couldn't, and I didn't. But long story short, they deemed me non-essential. Thankfully, I booked a hotel as backup. But, my parents are very good at bringing me back to reality. And they told me, always remember, you can never take the good without the bad. And so, I made the journey to Miami. It was the best decision I made for myself and for my business and for my future going forward. But, I ended up having to quarantine. Thankfully, I only had to stay for 2 out of the 3 days. And it really wasn't that bad. My hotel was great. The staff was great. Surprisingly, my food was amazing. And so you just kind of have to approach everything, in my opinion, with an open mind, and just, instead of looking at it like it's no different with being an entrepreneur. You're going to hit adversities, and there's going to be roadblocks in your journey. But if you come in with good intention, everything will kind of settle in. So end of the day, it was great, regardless on what ended up happening. I'm happy that everything happened the way it did.
Awesome. What were like some of your favorite moments of like the whole thing, just to kind of, before we get into day one, but like if you were to look back at the whole weekend, what were some of those favorite moments?
Well, for me, my biggest moment was when I actually looked out my window and seen that Miami Beach was right outside my airplane window. And I literally just like started bawling because I was like, holy crap, I made it here. Like, no, there's people that told me not to go, and there's people that told me, you're crazy, you're going to get COVID. I don't have COVID. But it was meeting everybody. It was awesome to meet people like you, Joel. One of the reasons why I wanted to go was because, I've created, or I shouldn't say I guess Grant has created this awesome 10X community for us. And I've been so grateful to be in the presence of all of you guys virtually. And so it was like, well, what it would be like to go there in person and make my presence actually seem real. And just all the connections I made, the conversations we got into, it just made everything worth it. That is my favorite spot. I mean, outside of meeting Grant and Brandon and everyone, and that's Elena. Incredible. But you guys made everything feel really real for me.
Right. And of course, you had a moment to meet Elena.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Right.
Tell us about that.
I could probably cry just thinking about it.
Anyways, I don't know where I was going with that, but anyways, I'm just literally like just so grateful. I came from Canada. Wow. Traveled for like 22 and a half hours of flight travel to get here. 4 planes, I have to quarantine away, I do all this stuff. Yes, please. I just knew that it would cost me more to come here versus if we make.
You touched her.
Yay.
That was Mastermind Day, right, Saria?
Yes, it was. That Mastermind Day in general was incredible because I finally also got the opportunity to meet Brennan Dawson, and every single time that he came around, like Brandon, especially because he's been in Primerica and he like had a massive business in Primerica before he came over to Cordone Ventures. Like just talking about it, I'm like gonna get like emotional here, but he you know, for me, I really look up to him, not just because of his brilliance, but because he's kind of been in a position where I currently am. And so because he's so powerful in my eyes, I didn't want to, you know, you get one chance to meet somebody and I really didn't want it to go sideways. And so every time he came around, I just froze and I was like, oh my God, there's Brendan. Oh my God, what do I do? And so finally everything happened perfectly. Buck was there and I was like, Buck, can you please introduce me to Brandon? I said, I don't want to blow my chance. And so he gave me a bit of a pep talk and I ended up having the most greatest opportunity to speak to Brandon. I asked him how he scaled his Primerica business. He gave me awesome advice. And like, as I'm talking to him, like shaking and sweating, but that's the reason why I went. You know, I wouldn't have had those opportunities inside my home.
Right.
So
that Mastermind Day, not to take away from day one of GrowthCon, but that Mastermind Day, that room was very small. I mean, it was a big room, but it was very small. You had opportunity and they had some good insights that you didn't get to hear otherwise. So that was excellent. That was a great day.
I totally agree. It's one of my favorite days for sure.
So from like, I mean, what would you, when you look back now, just from your journey, because I think it's important that, you know, you could have just done it virtually. You could have just stayed home. You could have said, well, yes, you know, there's the chance I'm going to get COVID, which there is the chance right now, right? Wherever you go. Would you do it all over again?
I would in a heartbeat. Like, it's funny. There's a Primerica convention. I believe it's in Atlanta this year. And one of my friends was like, oh, I'll see you in Atlanta. And I'm like, well, if I go there, I'm going to have to quarantine again. But I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'll do it. But, you know, when you become an entrepreneur, it's about taking outside of out of normal risks, like doing things that most people wouldn't. And so when I looked at going to GrowthCon, I didn't look at it like, oh, I'm going to have to quarantine and I can get COVID and I can do this. I looked at it like I went there to change my life, which is another reason why it was so emotional for me, because I mean, why else do you become an entrepreneur? You don't do it just to, you know, not have a boss kind of thing. But I don't even know how to put it into words really, because I still feel like I'm really processing the whole entire thing. But what it did for me, I don't even know how to put it into words yet, but I just feel like I'm still putting all my action plans together. But it just made me feel like you get skin in the game, really is what it is, right? And it kind of shows you like what you can really do, what you're capable of as a human being. And I think that's really what entrepreneurship is about. Like, it's about testing your limits and proving yourself that you can make it to the finish line and then being like, okay, what's next? Let's raise the bar. If I can make it here, I can make it there, right? So it's like, how do I make it bigger? But also I want to show people that like you can do it as well, right? Like people are always going to tell you no, they're going to tell you not to do anything. My whole life, my whole entrepreneurship career so far, people have always told me no, I can't do this. And I'm just like, well, watch me, you know, guess you'll find out.
Yeah.
What's her name? I was on one of the clubhouse rooms, Delgado. What's her first name? Janelle. She was on there, and it was one of those things where there's a lot of, you know, well-intentioned people that tell you can't do this. You can't do this. and her response was, just watch me. Right.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of a very, well, that's not kind of, it's actually a very, very true thing. As far as, hey, look at me go. Because a lot of people, and it's well-intentioned, of course, it's because usually it's ones that love us and they tell us, hey, why are you pushing yourself? Right. Because the journey isn't easy. The journey's hard. It comes with its own stresses, its own anxieties, its own challenges along the way, and ones we didn't expect, and they hit us different ways.
Mhm.
So it's like when we see like a culmination moment, like a moment in time where we're like, this gives me some of the information that I need that says why I'm doing this.
Mhm.
Right. Or the picture that I have in the future is now in clearer picture now. I can see it more clearly. So that's kind of how I look at it too, as far as just, where are things going, kind of a thing.
Totally agree.
So day one, now I have this clip here and we'll start. So day one, as every GrowthCon, and actually every single day they open up, but day one, I got this recording here too. So I'm gonna pull this in here real quick, which is really cool. And I'm just going to bring the audio of that down real quick, and we'll be able to kind of. I mean, for those of you that weren't there, I mean, they never fail to impress as far as what they did with the intro. And
could you feel it booming, Saria, where you were sitting? Could you feel the bass?
I can only imagine you guys, but yeah, I did. And it's funny when Jared came on stage and he was like, "Can you guys feel it? It's like shaking my heart." And I was just like, yeah, I can only imagine what it feels like to be on that stage. So next year goals, guys, we're going to be on that stage.
There you go. Yes. That'd be awesome. Well, and it's just, I mean, I don't think there was a bad seat in the house, really, frankly, as far as being able to experience it. They had things set up. There's a couple panoramas that we had there, as far as like they had things set up in such a way so that everybody could have a clear vision of what was going on. Mm-hmm. And really, it set the tone for the whole thing, because all the different speakers, they talked about their passion, their goals that are big, and really the ways to get past and through the challenges that come along to the goals. Mm-hmm. And that's where we'll get into kind of like day one and the speakers that we talked about, or that we're going to talk about here today. So let's see here.
It's long.
This is long. This is 5 minutes. Intro. Well, but I think it really sets the tone as this plays. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts that are coming to your mind as you see this?
I can't see anything. Am I supposed to?
Is it?
I can see it, Joel. I can see it.
You can see it? Okay.
It's the intro with all the words and all the phrases. Now, they used our very first GrowthCon in Vegas, Joel, when we were at GrowthCon 2, they used, I think, the same thing. But if you're new and you're walking into GrowthCon, you're all excited, you don't know what to expect, and then this plays. It was intense the first time we saw it in Vegas. And so when we saw this again, it sets the tone for the day. It sets the mood.
Right. Right.
For me, when that first played, for me, I was like, pardon my French, but I was like, shit, this is real. Like, I'm here. Yeah. Like, it was more of like a victory for me. I was like, I made it. Like, there's one thing to go there and to get into your accommodation to see the people, but once the actual event started, I was like, damn, I'm here. Okay, let's do this.
Right.
I just kept thinking, I'm a Hamilton fan. I have a kid who likes Hamilton, so we listen to the soundtrack a lot. I'm like, we are in the room where it happens. This is the room to be at right now.
Right. Well, and definitely. So like right now, the intro act, I thought that was rather interesting. I was trying to figure out like what would Grant do this year,
after last year
versus last year, the year before, and the year before, it's like each day he had a different intro that he did. And it was just straight up impressive. I know one of the years, one of the sessions there, he introed in one of his cars with Snoop Dogg, right? And it was one of those things where he always finds some way to raise the bar a little bit further. And so what I liked about that, when you look at like how he puts on the show, is he's always looking for that next small element that brings it. And so sometimes we look at, well, how can we completely overdo it? You usually don't have to go that far. Usually it's just a small piece, because I think like some of the intro is some of the same intro that he's used in years before. So it's not like he just replaced that, but the act, setting the tone, just the direction that it pulls everybody in to get onto the topic there. So, I think this is about over. But for those of you that weren't there, by all means, make your way there next year, because you're not going to want to miss it.
And get the recording. We were there, and I'm going to get the recording because we missed certain things that I know are going to be valuable. Because it's impossible to take it all in one setting.
Right.
Yeah.
I got the recordings. I've already started listening to them, but
I need to get them.
It's funny because Grant talks about, he's like, if you're anything like me, you'll be taking notes, but then you forget what you're writing as you're listening, and then you're trying to listen at the same time, and then you end up missing more. And so the first day I actually tried to not take as many notes and just live in the moment, take bullet notes. But then, then as more people started talking and more nuggets came, I was like, oh, I got to write that down. Oh, I got to write that down. So it's almost like, get the recordings, because there's so many nuggets that you'll miss if you don't go back and listen.
Yeah.
I was halfway expecting, like with the opening dancers, for one of these people to be Grant.
Should have been.
Were one of you guys expecting the same thing? Right.
I thought Elena, actually, for sure, and Scarlett. I thought they were going to make an appearance.
Right. Well, it's like in the last year, they did. They were one of the dances, right? Mm-hmm. And Elena was part of it, and then also a lot of the sales guys at 10X were part of the intro of things. And so I was kind of like halfway wondering, like, are some of these guys that are the dancers, are they going to be, are they going to actually be some of the sales guys that we know? Like, I was totally expecting Michael Bonnet, to be one of those guys, or Jared Kay or Alex Grant, one of those guys. I was halfway expecting that. So, but anyway, it didn't disappoint. It was a great experience just on the intro alone. So if we get into it, though, what would you guys say is, like, hands down your number one favorite speaker day one?
Ooh, I want to hear what you guys say first.
I
know.
I have a feeling that we're probably all on the same one.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, hit me.
They opened with Jesse for a reason. So Jesse Etzler, I took the most notes. He set the pace for the whole weekend. And the one I didn't take any notes on was Mike Rowe, but I listened to him because he was so entertaining and insightful and nice to listen to. But I didn't take any notes. I just took it all in. But Jesse, I have a book on Jesse. These are all my notes on Jesse. Everything he said, all 10 points, I got him.
Right. Well, okay. So the first speaker was Grant, right? And I think he kind of he set the tone of what GrowthCon really, because throughout the whole of GrowthCon, he'd ask each speaker, "Hey, what does 10X mean to you?" Mm-hmm. And so he kind of, like, here's some of the notes that I took just on the opening, just to kind of set the tone. He says, it's be ready all the time, think bigger than you're thinking. So, and that's, I think sometimes we don't think, or we have not thought bigger than our thinking because it's uncomfortable. It pushes us to a position where we're literally, uncomfortable with that idea of thinking bigger for one reason or another. What do you guys think? I mean, have you found yourself in that situation?
100%. Like, I love the fact that, I guess that was brought up because Brandon Dawson is somebody who really taught me to think bigger than myself, which is one of the reasons why I came to Miami as well. When you look at, like, even entrepreneurship, Kevin O'Leary, actually, I'm gonna go a little bit forward here, but he talked about how, hold on, actually, I think I might have a note on it. Let me see if I can find it, because I really don't want to mess this up. But he said, the reason people pursue entrepreneurship isn't about the greed of money. It's about the pursuit of personal freedom. And it's not just about the freedom for yourself, but it's about the freedom for your family and the people around you. And that's the biggest reason why I chose entrepreneurship. And that's why I work so hard at my goals. And so when Grant says about, whatever you said about outside of you, you have to take almost yourself out of the equation and realize, like, what is it going to look like for my family, that generational wealth? Like, you have to look at that forward vision. So that's kind of what it meant to me.
Okay. What about you, Audrey?
All I focused on was Jesse Etzler. I did like the Grant open with practice courage. He said it took courage to show up there because we, like you mentioned earlier, Saria, we all took a risk going. We left work, we left family, we took a risk, and we were safe. We were all safe. Wore our masks down there, and none of us got sick, thank goodness. But it was practicing courage, and Elena talked about that too. And I wish I would have taken more notes on that because they take a different viewpoint of courage and what it means. Because if you say courage to the normal person, they don't interpret it the same way. And I wish I would have taken more notes on that. That's why I'm going to get the recording so I can note that, because courage can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah. I've actually added courage as one of my core values now, Audrey, because courage was brought up a lot. And in order to become an entrepreneur, you have to have courage, or else you're going to flop.
Me and Joel have bracelets we wear every day with the scripture, and it's be courageous.
Yep, right there.
Be courageous every day. As Elena was speaking, Joel's like, go give her your bracelet. I'm like, it's my bracelet. And it's 30. I wore it in the shower. Elena might not want that bracelet.
No, I had a brand new one in my backpack.
We're gonna mail it. We're gonna mail a gift basket, and we're gonna mail it.
I love it.
There we go.
Yeah, so be courageous.
Since we're on the topic of Kevin O'Leary, we kind of jumped forward a little bit, and we're talking about, he was towards the end of the day. But I like some of the points that he said is set targets that can be hit. And so sometimes we do think of goals. We need to have the big goals that are just unreachable. But we also then, as we look at that big goal, I liked the point he made because that fits in line with that. Is like we need to set little targets that we can hit along the way, along the journey. And the other part was you achieve value by what you do, not what you know. Go for connections.
I remember him saying that.
And so I think it's a strong testament because there's a lot of people that have a lot of good knowledge. They have a lot of book knowledge, right? But they've never taken the time to put that book knowledge into action and actually go do it. And there's tons of courses you can find out there. There's tons of people that want to give their opinion, especially on social platforms like Clubhouse. My constant joke is sooner or later you're going to hear in some moderated room, their mother telling them to come eat their meatloaf because they're not actually going to do it
every day. But it's
right.
True.
But it's very, very true because you have people out there with a lot of knowledge, but they're actually not doing it. So they can't give you like the real world example of like how this fits into the play of things. And I think that's important there. And then there's one quote he had, and then I'll let you guys, take the ball there. Dead bird under the nest never learns how to fly.
Boom. That's huge.
Right. So you got to get out from under the nest. You got to get up there and actually go do it. And that went in harmony with that thought of you have to go be a doer right there.
Be courageous, right?
Yeah. Be courageous. 100%.
Love it.
And I see Kevin O'Leary, he struck me, he strikes everybody, I think, a little bit on Shark Tank as this very cold and calculated. And I liked it though, because he's like, I'm trying to be nice actually by telling them their idea sucks.
Nobody wants to hear it though, right? Nobody wants to hear the truth.
Right.
But they need to hear it.
And that's actually so much, it's so true because you see a lot of people and it's like you can tell they're very passionate about something, but you're like, I'm not a visionary, but I don't see it. I don't see how that's going to be even something worthwhile. Yeah. Right.
I loved how he focused on more than a few times. He talked about honesty and I know with the 10X community doing the ethical thing. And what else does Grant say? It's your duty. Honesty. Yes. Honesty is a huge thing. And in the business world, sometimes that can get murky. And he pointed it out more than a few times. And I appreciated that. the big key takeaway from him was if you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said. And that should be how we all engage in life and in business and in everything. But unfortunately, it's not always true. So I liked that. And I liked that he kept talking about his mom. You could tell he had a good relationship with his family, and that formed who he was. And he's doing that for his kids too. Because didn't he say he had been married 30 plus years?
Something like that.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. He really was Mr. Wonderful. Is that what they call him on the Shark Tank? Mr. Wonderful?
Yes,
He really was. He was not what I expected. And I enjoyed seeing him much more than I thought I would.
I think a lot of people felt that way, Audrey, because he really is incredible. And I love the fact how he talked about what he's doing with his kids and what his mom did with, I guess, him growing up, how he says, I have all this money, but unless you do something, you're not going to get it. Because I think it's very common for people in today's age or any age to think that people that are born into money, they're automatically going to make it, right? So it's really cool to see people like even Grant. Like I love seeing Grant when he brings his kids on stage and you see them, come into their own, because people have sometimes like this bad minutia or whatever you want to call it about money. But money's not bad, right? It's like if you teach people that money is a tool, and you can be, like you said, be honest, have courageous, be transparent, there's nothing wrong with that. So it was really refreshing to me to see that Mr. Wonderful, is teaching his kids the same thing and not just giving them the money. I think that's really important.
I think it was last year, Joel, at GrowthCon, Kevin Hart had said, that's my money. I earn that money. That's not my kids' money. They're going to go earn their own money. And I'm going to teach them how to work hard, because that's what you do. You teach your kids to work. You don't just give them things.
Right.
Yeah. Well, actually, Grant said something right in the beginning in his opening speech. He said, we all came from nothing. And he said, when you were listening to all of these people and their success stories, just remember that we all came from nothing. And it's really important to understand, because whether you come from money or not, I mean, it's very rare. Even if someone just gives you a company, you still need to understand how it runs, how to make that company profitable and whatnot, right? So like everything does take time, money, energy, effort, so don't always just boil it down to like, oh, it's easy for them because they were rich. Well, it really wasn't.
Well, and a lot of people do that. They make that assumption that, hey, something came really easy for that person. So, of course it's easy for them. Of course they're going to be successful.
Yeah.
I oftentimes, and I've seen this over the years too, it's like a lot of people make that assumption about people that just simply own a business and they don't realize, and they're like, well, I'm going to own a business, but they don't realize, the pay cut, number one, that they're going to take. And the stresses now that they have to take on, it's just a whole different level. You can't go start a business, go be entrepreneurial and check out and only do it 9 to 5.
No.
I love that you just said that, Joel. I was just going to say the same thing. People think you do a business and just because you get to do anything you want, like that business doesn't leave you. You go to bed at night and, oftentimes, it's not unusual for me to work a 12-hour day because it's my business. I can do things, but I also absolutely love what I do. So if I worked a 12-hour shift, I feel great. I got things done. I got to help people, right? Where when I worked for other people, even working 4 hours was too much for me. I was like, when the hell can I go home?
Right. Well, now let me ask you this though: is that mindset? You look at individuals that work for somebody else. Can't those same individuals have that same mindset? Is it only limited to entrepreneurs?
No. Obviously, I always think of building an empire. In Elena's book, she talks about there is somebody who has to take the lead. There is somebody who is the king. And you help build that empire because you want to see the good things. You're getting the benefits. You're helping build it. But when you have a retail job at a mall and you're selling jeans, you're not helping build Buckle's empire. You're just an hourly employee. So yeah. If you are part of the empire and you want to take that role, it doesn't have to be your own, like Jared says with Grant.
Well, that's kind of where I was going with that. I think what it comes back down to is it comes back down to the mindset of the individual, right? So, even Grant in one of his books talks about how when he was, working at McDonald's, I mean, it was the worst thing. He was making this and he was counting the days to go home, versus the guy he was working with was studying every aspect of the business because he was going to go open up a dozen franchises, right?
Yeah.
So it goes to show that really anything, you may not like that individual job that you're doing right at that moment. You're like, man, this is not what I view as my favorite thing here. Okay, it's just not. And there's things, each of us have within our own businesses that are like that. But we know that this is a key, like little gear, a little component that needs to be churning for this to work over here. But then at the same time, too, is other individuals that are working for somebody else can have that passion just as well. I think it all comes down to a mindset and a decision to have it.
I don't know who said it, if it was Jesse or somebody else, but they said, maybe instead of always following your passion, why don't you bring it with you in everything you do? Bring your soul, your passion into it. And I was like,
I have that somewhere too. Because I thought of those because we have our team is amazing, and I appreciate that they're helping build this empire, and they want a piece of this, and they're a huge part of our foundations. And I love that. I'm going to find it in my notes because that was another day. I think that was another day, but I loved it because sometimes that can get confusing and conflicting if you're not sure your direction. Yeah. Don't follow your passion. Bring it with you. It was whoever spoke before Glenn Sanford.
Oh yeah, that's day 2. I don't know who that was.
Day 2. So we're jumping ahead. Let's jump back to day 1 here, Audrey. Come on.
You know what? Actually,
every day. Sorry. Should we go over Jesse? I mean, Jesse could be a whole episode all by himself.
Well, let's move on to Jesse real quick here. So, I mean, what were your favorite takeaways for Jesse?
All of it.
Okay. Let's start with one. How's that?
Okay. Here's one big thing that I know I have done and I see other employees here doing, and I'm trying to get us out of the habit. Call. Don't hide behind an email. Get in front of the problem. Get on the phone and call. It's uncomfortable, but it works things out. We had an unhappy client yesterday. He was unhappy about one little thing, and I called him. It went wonderfully, and by the end of the conversation, we were talking about moving to Miami and seeing him there. So anyway, a call. Get in front of the problem. Don't hide behind an email.
Powerful.
Handle the lows. That's what it was. Number 9. Handle the lows.
There you go. Right.
Don't live in.
So going down Jesse Etzler, right? One of the things he opened with that I thought was very impactful was sell the why behind the product versus what the product is. And how often do we see, like, when somebody's pitching something, and we probably all did this as well. We're like, we're selling this product versus why they need the product. Right? Have you found yourself in that situation?
Yeah.
How did it go?
Focus more on the product instead of the problem or the person. Yeah.
Right. So if we sell why, the benefits, the benefits of it, the features, advantage, benefits, and that's what I thought. And then, he was very impactful with his. I mean, he just came out passionate.
He always does.
Yeah, he always does.
Oh, I love listening to Jesse speak. Like he makes me feel like I got to do more. And when he talked about our relationship with time, like that's why they put him out first, right? When you look at, you don't have time really. And what is your relationship with time? We're not guaranteed tomorrow. Every single day, if you look at my whiteboard, my first task every day is get up, because I'm not guaranteed it. If I can get up in the morning, I check that off, makes me feel great. Now I can accomplish everything else for the rest of my day. And once you put that into perspective, you will look at things differently. You will take out procrastination in your day. You will treat people differently. You will speak with honesty, integrity, and courage. And I love that.
Yes.
Love it.
That's a great quote right there. Sorry, I quote you on that.
We're gonna patent it.
There you go.
But one thing that Jesse said too is his 3 C's is what I think is so important, especially when you're in business, and business is a people business, right? Like Grant says, it's a contact sport. So he talked about compliment, congratulate, and console. Those 3 things, game changer.
And the 3-minute miracle. take a minute to write somebody. And Joel's really good at this. Joel, compliment to you. You're really good at this. I need to improve. I'm better at sending a quick little video message, but even better than that is a handwritten message. And I need to just take the time out. 3-minute miracle. It only takes 3 minutes a day. What did he say? You could write how many cards? He said by the end of the year, you've had 1,000 cards sent out to people. Just take 3 to 5 minutes a day.
That's right.
I think that's important. Like when you look at a whole year, like 365 days, I love how when Jesse talks about things, he says, let's say 3 a day means at the end of the year, it's going to be 1,000, because oftentimes when you're going through the motions of everyday life, you don't think the smallest things you're doing today is going to have the biggest impact. I'm guilty of doing that all the time, but it's like, when you look at that, like I could touch 1,000 people in 1 year. It's like, oh, maybe I'll do 5 a day instead of 3.
Yeah.
There was one other point that he made is remember he was asked, by that one coach, not no, will you, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I think when you start to build that, I always like pulling these little small nuggets, because they're the small nuggets that I'll grab onto, and I'll stick with that for a while. And like the will you go home and be successful with this? Will you go home and put this into action?
Mm-hmm.
Will you go home and not procrastinate? Will you? And so a lot of people say, well, I know I'm going to get around to that. And what's funny is, how often have you found yourself where you're in a situation where like, well, I know I need to get that done. And the task that you say, you need to get that done is literally maybe a 5 to 10 minute task.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And actually this kind of tied into a recent episode of the Undercover Billionaire where, they were talking about making videos for the business, and they're like, all right, well, let's schedule that tomorrow. All right, no, every company says we'll schedule that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow comes and you procrastinate it off. So all that kind of comes in. If you start asking yourself, will you, and see how quickly you can take the time away, you're like, hey, instantly, let's do this. I don't, a lot of times in my office, I'm like, hey, let's go do this. Let's do it now. No time like the present. That means now.
Yeah.
Let's get at it. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's a hard practice, because usually when Joel says that, we're all in the middle of doing something, another task. But sometimes you just got to write down where you stopped, stop and do it, and just get it done. Right.
Well, how often has that been something that we said that yesterday? And we said that the day before. And so finally it's like, yes, I know it needs to get done. All right, let's do it now.
Yeah.
Let's get it done with. Let's because the minute, how do you guys feel when you do that? Do something like that.
Yeah. Like empowered. And then it's like, what else can I do? Like,
yes.
I love it. Grant's actually helped me a lot. When he says take time out of the equation, right? It's like, don't procrastinate, do it now. So perfect. Bang on, Joel.
There you go. So so there was 10 points that Jesse Etzler brought out. And so we talked about Kevin Leonard. We jumped to the end of the day. We're jumping to the beginning of the day. And there was 10 points that he brought out. Let's go through them for our audience. So that way, if you weren't there, or if you didn't capture notes or something like that on this, let's just kind of wrap through them a little bit.
Do you have them?
Yeah, I got them. I got them here. So the first one was, or who wants to take the first one?
I don't have them written down, so you guys go right ahead.
I got it. Word of the year. Have a word, a theme for your year.
Right. So the word that guides you is what he brought out. So one word for the whole year. Maybe it's soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't outsource more. And then wait here. Yeah. Second one, fewer goals.
Yes.
Quality goals, better goals. He said.
Well, and what he said is more isn't better. Better is better.
Better is better. Mm-hmm.
And so that actually got me to thinking a lot about like how I write my goals. And so it's, I've thought, okay, how more simplistic can I make one goal?
Mm-hmm.
Versus do I need to fill out all the spaces on my piece of paper, or can I just literally start with like one goal and focus on that?
Mm-hmm.
And what would that do for me?
Yeah, exactly.
And here's the other thing, and Zaria, you did that, is go where the action is, put yourself in the position to attract the luck.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So, and I'm gonna pause there because I'm gonna ask you this question, because when we opened this episode, we talked about where you came from, your journey there. what has been, you okay?
I kicked my heater. I'll get it.
Okay. What has been the result of you taking that action? What, like, looking back now over the last week,
Yeah,
what was the
there,
benefit?
there could be a lot of it, but for me, I think the biggest benefit is people actually got to see me. Like, I'm a pretty big, larger than life person, and that doesn't jive with everybody all the time. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I've come to terms with that, but it really, like, in virtual, you can only put so much soul, you know what I mean, into your virtual presence. And after people see me and, like, just there's something about human connection, regardless that we've been in a pandemic for the last year. We need human connection. And that's why I went, right? I wanted to put myself in front of people, and I wanted to ask them, how can I help you guys? How can we collaborate? Because essentially this whole group of people is what's going to help us get to the top, you know, where we want to go. And whether I would have done virtual in my house, like, it just wouldn't have been the same. Like, you know, even me and you, Joel, me and you connected, I feel like, and Audrey, we all connected on such a deeper level than we would have if we were just continuing to talk on, you know, Instagram and Messenger. And so for me, regardless on the actual event, the people just made it for me.
What about you, Audrey?
Yeah, being there with people. I think this year's been more interesting because, like you mentioned, Saria, on Zoom, our names are there and we see each other, but we don't get to interact on the same level. But for me, the flip side of that was when we went to GrowthCon, we knew people in the room. We knew your name. We knew faces. We had these connections to make that, like you said, wouldn't be the same on virtual. So that was huge.
And how cool was it that, like, you know, people always say don't talk to strangers, but you had this cool connection to each other, because even though we haven't officially met, you know, we've been talking and working on each other's businesses together for the last almost 6 months. And so it's like you meet them and it's like, dang, you're real. Like, for me, that's what it was like. Like, you're a real human being, and now we're actually connecting. So that was powerful.
There you go. And who knows what, like, the next 6 months, the next 12 months brings, right? How can we help each other grow? And I think that's where that's where the more and more that I stay around the 10X family and network, right? And it is the more and more I see that there's this solid core that kind of that just builds and builds of people that genuinely care about the other folks in the network and the family, and they're there to help each other grow. Yeah. And that's what I love. And each year I look at, like, the GrowthCon as like the pinnacle of, okay, what did I do since last GrowthCon? What did I accomplish? And you know, where did because is this your first? This was your first one, right?
Yeah, first one. Okay. So, you know, came with a bang.
there you go. And so now you can look forward to, like, next year. What am I going to be able to say is different in the last 12 months or whatever time frame it is that I achieved since the last one? Exactly. So instead of January to December and New Year's resolutions, it's like, if you're 10X, you don't have New Year's resolutions.
Exactly. No. You set bigger goals.
You're setting goals every day. And if you didn't achieve those goals, those resolutions, you're still going towards them. Yeah. And so that's what I always kind of thought was interesting. It's like, if you're 10X, you don't look at New Year's resolutions. You don't give up on failed goals. Yeah. They're just so big that you're still grinding to them, you know, like years at a time, you know, kind of a thing. Yeah. So, but that takes us to point number 5 that Jesse brought out. He said, think in weeks, not days.
Yes.
Yes.
And I thought that was huge, because a lot of times, I don't know about you girls, but I'll look at what I didn't get done that day versus the week. And so that was such a you know, just a change in perspective. It's like, you know, some people may say, well, that's pretty simple. Yeah, it is. But if you've been in the habit of looking at what did I get done this day versus this week, I mean, let's face it, when you're really, really pushing, if you didn't achieve that one thing in that day, it can be rather demotivating. You know, you're rather hard on yourself.
I think that also stems from, excuse me, being an employee, because maybe you guys could agree or not, but I think when I was an employee, everything was very daily. And if you didn't get it done that day, you would almost get like, frowned at. But if you got it done, nobody would say anything to you. So I think it stems from the way we were maybe programmed. So, as entrepreneurs, you have to program your brain in a different way in order to, achieve things you haven't achieved yet.
Right.
100%.
And I like that. I'm going to back you up. One, Joel, 4.4 on there was evening routines, which I think you either are good at that or you're not. So that was a good point he brought out. That adds to your success to know what you're going to do the next day so that you can accomplish everything in the week you need to and in the day that you need to.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Well, and I think the evening routine is one of those things that's important. So going back to that is because you can then do a reflection. You can set your stage for the next day.
Yeah, and you write it down.
Write it down like, hey, what are my things that I need to go accomplish the next day? Like really, you kind of have that fresh in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that opportunity to then kind of like set the stage and say, this is the most critical. This will impact my day tomorrow. This will impact my week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you guys time block?
Tell us more.
Something I've been doing, Grant, really helps me time block my day. Before I used to wake up and not have my days planned. And I've noticed now that if I don't time block my days, I'm like lost, not getting things done. Even if I time block in the morning, it's not the same. There's something about getting up and knowing, having everything like planned out, whether they happen in that same like frequency or not. I know I can look at my whiteboard, like seriously get 17 whiteboards in your office because they're the greatest thing in the world. And I'll star the things that are super important to me. So if like I have to send something to a client that I know even with a day late or something, 'cause sometimes that happens, I star the things that are really important to me. And I'm like, I know because like Jesse said, life happens, which is why you want to do a weekly goal. I know that if anything else didn't get done that day, this needs to get done. And so it's really helped me a lot.
Awesome. I'll talk to you more about that later because I'm curious. And Christopher Dunson last week on Be Growth Driven had said, do the most important things in the morning. And that stuck with us because sometimes we let things interrupt us and they get pushed off to the end of the day. And then you're frustrated and you're tired and you didn't get it done and you need to get it done. And you're not in a good frame of mind. But if you do it first thing in the morning, if only somebody else could take our kids to school so we get to work and get to it.
Right.
Oh, you guys don't have dogs? Oh, interesting. Okay.
We have kids.
Used to have a dog. I love dogs. It's one of those things where
when you're running a business,
it's a lot. I get it.
Dog.
Yeah,
I get it. I'm with you.
That's why Grant has cats.
It'd be really hard to replace the wonderful dog we had. So number 6 was what you had brought up before with the 3 C's, right? Compliment, congratulate, console. And he brought out one point, show up. Don't call, show up.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, that's huge.
So you showed up, and look at what happened. Look at the benefits. And this is what's really cool about some of the things that Jesse talked about is like, when you apply these things, look at what things happen in your life, right? And look at what new goals you're like, I'm seriously contemplating, like, can I get 10 stamps in my passport book this year?
Yes, you can.
10 country stamps.
I thought you said 2.
Well, he's going to Dubai now. We discussed it last night.
Well,
I
want to go too.
Well, of course you're going to go.
But it's can I do that or something along those lines, right? So you start thinking of like, hey, how can I show up? What would happen if I showed up? Like, oh my goodness, what could happen? I have no idea. Would it be bad?
Mm-hmm.
No. Well, then it can only be good, right?
Well, I'm sure we've all heard this before, but it's 90% of success is just showing up. And I love that Grant really nails that all the time because when I first got into business, somebody told me that. I don't remember if it was the exact same wording, but I was just like, okay, that's all I had to do is show up. Yeah, whether you're tired, no matter what. And there was times where, man, I was exhausted. Me and my ex were fighting. Things were happening, and I wasn't in the right mindset to even have a conversation. But I showed up, and every time I showed up, something would happen. You'd make a connection, or even if you didn't make a connection, people see you in the room. And the more people see you in the room, you become real to that person, and people understand that you're serious about your business, right? So no matter what happens in life, just show up.
So now, here's a question to kind of expand on that. What does it mean to show up?
Ooh, are you asking me?
Sure. Go for it.
For me, I mean, show up with your best self. Like when they talk about your courage, your being transparent, it's not just showing up and being like, hey, stuff, I'm here. I'm sorry. It's like show up and, project what you want people to see of you, right? Like I want people to think that I'm the person that can help them achieve their goals or that can help them, create a financial goal and get them there. But I also want people to take me seriously because I'm not going to go into this rabbit hole, but being a woman in business, as Audrey can agree, sometimes people don't take you seriously. And so when you show up, you need to dress well, you need to be prepared, you got to put your, entrepreneur mindset on, and you need to act like it's either you show up or you die kind of thing, right? So it's like, how are people going to, I guess, convey me and my business? When I leave, actually, this brings me to, I'm going to back up a second to Grant, but he said, on your bucket list, you should be, I want to be known as a badass. I know Audrey doesn't love this term, but he goes, when people come into the room sometimes and people go, oh shit, like Tommy Hilfiger's here kind of thing. He goes, you want that to be you. So when I think of showing up, I think of showing up and people being like, oh, sorry is in the room. So like bring that with you. Does that answer your question?
No, that absolutely answers the question. Audrey, what do you think showing up means?
Being present, being there in the moment. And I was going to say flip side before I answered you, Joel. Sorry, I noticed you dressed every day. I did too. You show up. I wasn't wearing blue jeans to GrowthCon. No offense to those of you who did. There were people that wore their shirts to promote, and we brought ours but didn't wear them. But I was showing up.
Yeah,
I'm in the room. I want to stand out, and by dressing a certain way, you do stand out. So good job, well dressed. We pulled that off.
And I'm just going to touch on that, and it's not meant, and I'm going to say this, and it's not meant to be a disrespect to those that maybe did come this way. Just take this maybe as a constructive, but it's if you show up like you just rolled out of bed to an event that you or someone that sent you spent thousands of dollars.
At least $5,000 each. Like, come on, like
spend a couple hundred on your clothes.
Airfare's at least $500 for some, for most, if not more. Depending upon how far you flew or where you flew. How you flew, and hotels another what, $1,000? Yeah, $1,500, something like that, right? Maybe some incidentals, etc. But the fact is that people invested. So I hope, here's what I would say. Walk away from this event if you attended this virtually or in person. Walk away with a new investment in yourself that you're going to show up in a different way going forward.
Yes, I love that, Joel.
Because what's the worst thing that's going to happen to you? Right? And then do it consistently, though. So number 7 for Jesse Etzler, he said this. And this is actually, I think, why I missed a couple sessions in the afternoon is because I'm like, hey, I need to go do this. He says, one job, stay healthy, monitor input and output. And actually, so what does that mean to you guys?
I appreciate that. Keep yourself well. We only have one life to live. Most people believe that. That's what we believe. Right now, keep healthy right now, in the here and now. Because if you're not healthy, you can't help others. Right.
So true. And you won't be able to live your legacy either. Like it's very important to stay healthy. It's very easy in today's day to get sick, not even with the coronavirus, but other things that can, affect your life. And so it's very important to go to the gym. Like I love the fact that even Grant talks about beating the sun and going to the gym because it's so good for your mental health. But where I'm living, our gyms have been closed for the last year. So I've been struggling with that. But, how else can I keep myself healthy? Feed yourself the right information, go around the right people. Like that also goes with being healthy, in my opinion.
Yes. The inputs and outputs. I thought he was going to talk about food and bodily fluids. I think he was talking about what we are feeding ourselves, like our books, our content. What are we taking in?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead,
Right.
Joel. You lit up with
That's
that.
right. No, it's it's getting around the inputs and outputs of good people, like guys like Jeff. If you guys are not following
Exactly.
Jeff, by the way, follow Jeff. Jeff is a rock star. And sorry, if you've not met Jeff, we need to
Like
introduce
Jeff, the entrepreneur? Is that who you're talking about?
No,
No, not that Jeff.
Jeff Sorrow.
I don't know who he is. I'm gonna write him down. Hold on.
Okay, we'll
He's been on-
introduce you
he's
to
been
him.
on Be Growth Driven before.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
will be again.
Yeah, no, I'm sure Jeff will be on one of our days, to recap. So, those types of things. But no, but the input and output. So, kind of expanding on that, it's like, what is, we talked about showing up, right? When we're showing up, our output, how we're impacting the people around us. I mean, how many of us don't get a little bit of a commission when we can make somebody smile? How do you feel when you can make somebody smile?
Yeah.
So that's your output. If you can make somebody's day, that's your output. Now the input is, it's not that you're going to say, well, you're just a negative person. We're not going to be rude, but we're obviously going to be very controlled on what we're consuming all the way in.
Mm-hmm.
It's our inputs can be what we even tell ourselves.
Yes.
What we reaffirm to ourselves, those types of things. Go ahead, Audrey.
Or not to tell on you, but I know you enjoy social media. Sometimes I'll be listening to, I'm like, what you got there on your phone? I'm like, is that adding any value to you? Did you just waste 5 minutes watching that video? I'm like, time is valuable.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, it says entertainment sometimes, but I'm like, I don't have time for that kind of junk. I'm like, nope, I'm not putting that in. I'm not giving them any glory. I got to move on with my day. But what are you watching on Facebook?
Well, and usually that's curiosity for me. I'm like, oh, wow.
And
I want to see what happens.
We don't watch a lot of TV. We do not do a lot of entertainment. So I get it's decompressing. But I'm always like, what crap is that you have on your phone?
Or usually, you know what? The other thing is, too, it's like the input is like Clubhouse. People, there's like constantly rooms on Clubhouse. And I don't, I know you're not on there yet. Sorry.
We'll be there soon.
We'll be there soon.
The entrepreneur, though, he's on there all the time.
Well, he's on Instagram, too.
Oh, I don't know from Clubhouse.
Jeff's a boss, So Jeff, if you're watching this, come on, man.
I gotta find him.
But it's the inputs there. It's like people get caught up, and what's interesting. I'm an observer. I'm a watcher sometimes, and I just like to watch what people are doing. I like to get involved into it, so I can kind of try to see how people are thinking, those types of things. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting, people get caught up in these little circles, and you can kind of see them looking down. It's like they're worried about what's going to happen to Clubhouse. Oh my goodness, will the world end? And they're listening to all these people. They're listening to bad information. They're listening to bad advice, and they're getting caught up and it's sucked into it. That's bad input. Mm-hmm. So let's move on to number 8. What he brought out was the 3-minute miracle, right? Which we talked about. It could be a text. It could be an email. It could be a letter. It could be a simple text or a simple message saying, hey, I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
You mean the world to me. Right. And it's if you're watching this right now, I challenge you to do that to 10 people.
Yes.
And send a video.
And you know what? That will also pay you, like me in my investment world, it'll pay you dividends. Like one of the reasons why I love, when people choose to work with me is because I do those types of things. Like I send my clients little birthday cards, like little fun things like that, because they're supporting my business, right? They make me feel good. So in turn, I want to make my clients feel good, whether they're expecting it or not. I'll have them on social media, and I like to send them a card because it's something that's delayed and then they get it in the mail. Nobody receives cards anymore. I had a client message me over Facebook during Christmas, and he goes, oh my goodness, you're the only person of everyone I know that sent me a Christmas card. Like, thank you so much. And I was just like crying.
It makes you stand out as different. It puts you up, your head and shoulders above the rest then. And it's not to get attention. Yes, it gets you attention. You do it from the heart. You have the right motive to do it.
Exactly.
A crappy card, they're going to see straight through that. But when it's genuine, like we had somebody yesterday in Clubhouse talking about that. It has to be from a genuine place.
Right.
And it speaks volumes.
Right. So one of the things that we do from like a corporate gift standpoint is we will send out corporate gifts like in later January or February.
After holidays.
After holidays. And it's because I genuinely want them to know that I appreciate their business. I don't want them to get lost with all the rest. After everybody else's stuff has come and gone, I'd rather be that one guy that sent something and they're like, wow, he actually does care.
Yeah, it's not out of obligation because of the season. It's because we want to.
Right, exactly. Number nine. You guys got that one? Audrey, you got that one?
Handle the lows. Get in front of the problem. Make the phone call. Handle it. Don't let it blow up.
Right. So get in front of it. And oftentimes, how many times have you guys seen like the train wreck happening?
Yeah. Sometimes I'm the train wreck.
Okay. So, but the minute you know it, right, what are you doing about it? Do you just sit there and go, oh my goodness, I can see what's going to happen next. And you sit there and do nothing. And now looking back, you realize, you know what, if I just would have jumped in that second, did this one thing, number one, how would that have made me feel? And number two, like, how would that have staved off this worst problem that now I'm lamenting?
You know what?
Diffuse the situation. Don't exacerbate it or watch it. Don't be a victim of it. Diffuse it.
Right.
Exactly.
What were you going to say?
Yeah.
I just had a cool story, a little bit. I had a client about a month or two ago kind of like reach out to me after we had set up an account with him. It was like the next day, and I hadn't always follow up with your clients. I was going to follow up with him the next day, the second day. Now I know follow up every single day because he sent me a message and he wasn't super happy. He's like, oh, I haven't heard from you. I don't know what's going on. And thankfully we were in the same town because sometimes I work in places that I'm not physically here. And so I was like, how do I fix this right now? Okay, this isn't the way I want to run my business. And this isn't the way I want my client to view me. So I went, in Canada, we have Tim Hortons, which is like pretty much the heart of Alberta, of Canada. And so I got him Tim Hortons. I got him a sandwich. I got him Timbits, which are like these little donut holes. And I got him a bunch of different coffees, and I went to his house and I showed up. I rang his doorbell. Going back to Jesse Etzler, show up, don't send a message. And so he goes, what the hell are you doing here? I said, listen, I just want you to know that that's not the way I run my business. And I said, I usually over deliver, not under deliver. And we don't have to go through everything, but I just, he goes, holy crap, no way. And then he messaged me the next day and was just like, I appreciate that so much. Like, I didn't mean to come off as rude. I said, no, listen, I take responsibility for that. I said, and thank you for bringing that forward to me because if you didn't say this to me, I wouldn't know how to get better. So anyways, that was a cool story about how to show up and, you did the right thing. Handle the lows. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he's still a client and he's done more business with me.
Good.
So now he's doing more business with you, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Why do you think people don't show up like that?
Well, I can speak to that. I used to not show up because in the first few years of my business, I would even barely follow up with my clients. And sounds funny, Joel and Audrey, but I used to think that if I kept getting in front of them, it would give them an opportunity to run or complain or tell them that they weren't happy with me. But funny thing is, now I've been, touching my clients more, and it's like they're literally waiting for you on the other line of the phone to call you. And I'm like, oh my God, you called me. Like, hi, I wanted to talk to you. And I'm like, why did I think the opposite for so long?
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm like that too. I'm afraid of what they are going to say. And I expect it to be a negative, even though I know what we do for our clients helps them. And I'm always scared of that negative feedback in case it's going to come.
Yeah, I hear you.
What's the worst that can happen, right?
Right. Like yesterday, calling the guy who wasn't happy.
Right.
He wasn't that unhappy. And we had a great conversation, and it's going to be okay. It went well. It went really well.
Well, once you actually take that initial step, like if you don't hide behind your email, if you pick up the phone, if you write the card, if you show up in person, I was thinking too that some people may be like, well, that's going to cost me money. It's going to cost you more money to go find a new client.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or have an unhappy
one. So, and how much now, if you've built that relationship, now you can actually say, hey, who else do you know that can use my services?
Exactly.
Because they're going to refer you now because they're going to be like, this gal, who had problems.
She brought me Tim Hortons.
Yeah, but she solves the problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that people, let's face it, that's all that people sometimes really care about. Hey, when there are problems, will you solve them?
Mm-hmm.
Or will you hide and run? So number 10, Number 10. What do you got this one, Audrey?
Take a chance on people.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to expand on that?
Go ahead. No, go for it.
That's all I wrote. And I'm like, that could mean so many things. I forgot what he said.
What does it mean?
Take chances on people.
What do you think it means?
I always think of the Luke Bryant country song. I believe all people are good. There is a small percentage of really evil people, but the rest of them, we all want to do good. We
Right.
want to do good to others. It's in us. It's in us to be good.
What do you think?
I think it's like one of those, it's almost like the, what do you call it? Whatever, innocent until proven guilty kind of thing. Like, I'm very like that. And one of the reasons why I like to bring people into my business, regardless on whether they think they can do it or not, is that I want to show people that you can, right? Like,
Right.
I've had people join my business before. Unfortunately, they're not with me anymore. But, you know, they came from that place where they didn't exactly believe in themselves, but I gave them that chance. And regardless that they're not with me anymore, they were like, wow, you know, I understand that this could happen for me if I put it in. And if you, if you just apply yourself to the
Right.
situation. Yeah.
I think some people don't take a chance. I know over the years, I have, I've been in business now for over 15 years, and I have my file folder of people that I've hired and that are no longer here.
Yeah.
And, and the reality is because I was very, I'm always very hopeful that there's good in every single person, that there's opportunity, that they say they want this. All right. Hey, let me help you get it.
Exactly.
And of course, the other side of them getting that is up to them. So, and it's, the reality is it's much easier for us to believe in somebody, because maybe sometimes all people need is someone to believe in them. Look back as far as like where you've been at.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody said, you got this, I believe in you.
You know what? I want to interrupt you guys for a second here, because Pitbull, we haven't even spoken about him yet. I know.
Yes.
He was incredible. So he talks about that a lot. I think I wrote this down. He says, surround yourself with great people who believe in the fight and the sacrifice, because so many people aren't going to believe in you. But he goes, those are the people that were front row at his stages when he was performing in arenas. And I'm sure you guys can both agree. I've been in business 5 years now, going on 6 here. But some of the people that were the closest to me haven't believed in me. And in the beginning, I took that really hard. And I was like, whew, maybe I shouldn't be in business. But now I found people like you guys, and it really reiterated to myself that they're just not the right people for me. But now, ever since people see me go to GrowthCon, I've been getting these messages, and they're like, oh, I'm so proud of your success, and you seem like you have it together and this kind of stuff. Right. And I'm like, some people even called me lucky. And I said, you know what, don't ever, like Pitbull said this exact line. He goes, it's funny, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And I literally said that to a few people, because I'm like, don't confuse my hard work with luck, because I've been dedicated to my success for 5 years, and this didn't just happen it didn't happen on accident. This happened on purpose, So I think it's really important to have that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and I think I've seen people over the years too. I've seen people, well, why are you pushing? What are you after?
Mm-hmm.
And, and the reality is what I'm after may not make sense to them.
Exactly.
And I'm 100% in realization with that. And so, but it's, for those people, it's, I remember, there's even been close family that said, hey, you can't, why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you pushing? And it's not like you're doing it to show them off, so to speak, but I don't know. Sometimes you need to grab those haters, you could say, and I mean that in a loving way, like those people that you would view as like a hater.
Yeah.
You can take that as fuel and realize, hey, they really mean the best for me. That's what they intend for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just it's not going to make sense to them right now.
Exactly.
That's okay.
Especially when it's family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you guys that question, because you guys have been in business for 15 years now. Have you guys had lots of family that maybe didn't support you or still don't support you?
Audrey, you want to talk about that?
I was going to say they support as far as this is our job we go to, but they want, like, I doubt none of my family's watching this. I could guarantee you right now.
Yeah.
I don't tell my sisters, hey, I know one sister follows me on all my social media channels and she follows Joel, but she'll watch Joel's videos if I'm in them with him. She likes those. But if it's just him, probably not. And I don't think they fully understand or appreciate what value we've gotten out of 10X. They don't see it the same way. So we be cautious what we say, but that doesn't change our enthusiasm we have. Joel, we're in different rooms. I should go over there. Joel drugged me along, kicking and screaming actually didn't even drag me along. I was just like, I don't like any of this. 10X. And so little by little by little, every GrowthCon, like Joel was saying, he gauges his success or what he's accomplished from GrowthCon to GrowthCon. It's more and more and more for me every year. I see a difference. So, but as far as them, we don't talk about. My mom watched Undercover Billionaire, and she's like, Grant Cardone, I know that name from us. Yeah. But she doesn't understand the concept of the show or the thought behind it. She doesn't quite get it. To her, it's a show.
Yeah.
I mentioned going to Pueblo. We might go. We're going to Pueblo. We're going to go see Matt Smith, whether he knows it or not. Jenny and Matt are coming, and we want to go see. Who's the guy who's going to run for mayor? Is it
Joe Camacho? He's amazing. He's incredible.
So, and he may be watching this actually too. So Joe and I, Joe and I, he's now on my list. We're gonna go visit him before
we're gonna go see that guy from that show. Like it doesn't connect. It doesn't connect.
Then how do they in business wise? Like, let's just say that either they support you or don't. I mean, in your guys' business, I mean, it's social media, so I don't think your family's going to need help with your social media. But how do you guys actually, I guess, handle maybe the background noise or the family that you have that just don't even give you the time of the day? Like, what do you guys do with that?
You know what? What I do with that, so it's like we don't just do social media. I mean, I'm on social media a lot, but we do a lot of like big data and data consulting and execution strategies for clients. Yeah. And so it's what we do is usually way over the head or unnecessary for what our family does, right? Yeah. It's cool because it's some of the stuff that you see talked about in movies, of what you can do with data and things like that, and what data is out there and all that kind of stuff. But from an aspect of like pushing, I mean, I've had family many years ago say, well, why are you doing this? Why not go get a job, go work for somebody?
God, that's horrible.
You're struggling. This is really tough for you, right? And it was one of the, even before I came across 10X and what 10X was, it was kind of like, you know what? No, I don't want to do that. That's not what I want to do. And it was actually at GrowthCon 3, Jesse Etzler, one of the things that I say this to a lot of people, and like one of the first notes that I wrote down, and Audrey, you got to jump here.
I'm sorry. I have a phone call. I just realized I'm missing a phone call.
That's all okay.
We can talk all day about this.
I know, right? So, but one of the things he said, which was really stuck out for me, was you didn't come this far to only come this far.
Yes. Write that one down, everybody.
And so, that's what really stuck out for me. And that's what I keep going back to in my head. Is I didn't come this far to this point to only go this far. I can go further. That means the journey's never ending. But I never let that be an exhaustion point in my mind. And we got wonderful folks like Miriam too. And she said she stopped. That's very sad, Miriam. Stop talking about my dreams with my family. And Miriam, we need to talk to you about
There's
Dubai.
A whole topic there.
By the way. You need to get Zaria there.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I gotta go, guys. Enjoy the conversation.
Thank you, Audrey.
It's so good being here with you.
But I mean, for me, it was kind of just realizing that, listen, what I'm telling them, I'm so excited about this. They're not going to understand the full dynamics of why it's important to me yet.
Yeah, true.
And so what I just simply did there is I simply said, well, hey, you know what? I totally respect your opinion, and I appreciate that you love me so much that you gave me your opinion.
That's a good way to look at it.
But I had to realize, okay, what parts of that could I take out of that? It was with their intention of love and the best wishes for me that they were saying that, but they were missing some pieces of information that I had. Now there might be some points that I could take and apply.
Yeah.
But maybe not all of it.
That's interesting. I'm always curious to know because like my family supports me, like my mom, my dad, my stepdad, like my immediate family, super supportive. They were one of my first clients in my business and super grateful to have them. But I'm Italian, so I have an extended family.
Okay.
Now, I have one auntie and uncle that have supported me pretty much from the beginning, and I love them and I thank them for that so much. They know who they are. They don't need to name names, but I've had family who, when I was at my lowest point and I was like, I need help, I'm trying to grow my business, can I help you guys? They wouldn't even give me the time of day to even to explain how I could help them. They were like, oh, we're at the bank, we're good, blah, blah, blah. And so in my opinion, maybe this is too harsh, which is why I wanted to get your opinion. I just kind of look at it like, you know what, if you're not going to support me, then I don't need your support moving forward. And so I don't put any effort, energy into them, but yet I see them watching everything that I do on social media. And so I'm like, well, you can watch me. I guess that's you supporting me. I guess that's the way you're going to support me.
You know what? I think the important aspect of that angle of growth there, though, too, is they're trying to make sense of why you're being successful.
Mm-hmm.
Or how and the why, right? And so they're going to watch, they're going to take a longer time, but it's eventually at one point in your journey
mm-hmm.
that they're going to be like, hey, so you need to create the environment as well for
mm-hmm.
those same people that you felt were against you to come back to you.
That's fair.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like one of those moments in time where they're going to say, all right, it's time that we do something with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then me, I'm like, I don't know if I maybe this is rude, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to.
So then, well, here's the question, right? Here's the powerful question is if you're on a path of growth, if you're on a path of going bigger, how will you react at that moment? Do you see what I'm saying? How you react actually will either validate or invalidate what you've been saying.
Yeah, that's so true.
So if you shove it in their nose, right?
Yeah.
Right? You're invalidating everything that you said you were standing for.
That's true. That's so true.
So, you can say, hey, not a problem. I've been here for you. When you're ready, I was ready.
Yeah.
I take full responsibility for you not being ready sooner.
Mm-hmm. Yay. That's a great point to make. I love that. I actually really do.
Because now that takes away any further worry for them. They're like, oh, this was because usually like the ones that are closest to us, they're worried about doing business with. We're worried about doing business with people that are really close to us because we're worried, okay, what if it doesn't go well?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have them as a friend. And there's some people that you got to just have them that way.
Yeah, you're right.
But, if you set the stage right, and this actually, that's day 2. That's day 2 nuts. I'm not going to jump there. There was a couple last things on Jesse Etzler that I really liked. And this is as everybody that's watching, as you and I, as Audrey and I, and, as we go forward, there's going to be moments where we're going to experience the pain.
Yes.
Right. And so I remember what Jesse said. He says, never give the pain a voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not going to die in chair, right? Is what I wrote down. He's not going to die in the chair. He's going to exhaust every option. So, the outstanding, I don't get tired. Remember when he was on the march? He's like, I'm not tired. I'm not tired, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's like some of us, we just need to constantly tell ourselves that I'm not tired. I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about, hey, you're tired for the night. We're talking about, I'm not done yet. And if you go to bed with that mindset and you wake up with that mindset, imagine what you'll be able to accomplish.
That's so true. I love that. That's super powerful. I'm not done yet.
Well, and it's if you can find, I always believe too, it's like if you can find some reason to smile about something,
Mm-hmm.
if you can say, well, take the dullest, depressing, most oh man, it's the gut puncher moment, and say, what can I learn from this?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, what do they do in those moments?
They go down.
They lament in the moment,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They get sucked into the moment. They get drawn under the surface of the water, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can see a reason that you see the sun rising,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see that there's an opportunity ahead versus a failure, a failure that you're looking back on. Imagine how your perspective will change and what you'll be able to truly accomplish.
Mm-hmm. And that's really what it's all about,
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, day one had a lot more impactful points. I'm sure that all of us, we could come back and do like a couple of more episodes just on day one. But next week, we're going to talk about day two. And as Miriam stated there, the journey is never ending. And I think that that's an important thing that we end with here too, is that the journey is never ending. Mm-hmm. So if you're watching this right now, if you're just now, you're saying, hey, what is this all about? Our intent here on Be Growth Driven, that we provide from First Direct, is to bring in folks like Zaria, like many of the other guests that we've had, people that are moving, shaking, going through their own struggles and tribulations, and they're still finding ways to grow, because what hopefully it's going to do for you, and it should do for you, is provide you reference points saying, hey, somebody else did it.
Mm-hmm.
I can do it too.
Yeah, that's exactly. I love it. Thank you so much for having me, Joel. I appreciate it. I had such a blast.
100%. We welcome you back next week. We're going to talk about day two. We're going to have some other guests on as well next week. And we're going to talk about day two of GrowthCon 5. There's so many valuable points that just the information alone is going to be powerful. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll have some very special guests that we're working on. I don't want to mention their names right now, but we're going to be working on those special guests to get them on, because we want them to share some of the different things. And if, by all means too, if you want to kind of maybe get like a precursor to that, join our clubhouse rooms that we have each and every single day. So until the next time, be great, because nothing else pays.
Okay.